A brand new year, a brand new month of time ahead to spend in ways that we really want to connect with ourselves. And I always like to think about this practice as one that reminds us to slow down. It's really easy at the beginning of a new year to get caught up in this idea of having to have these goals, these aspirations, things that we want to achieve. And while that can be really, really motivating, it can also set us up for kind of spending a period of time in this anticipative mindset, or this kind of stress mode almost, where we're trying to think about what we've got to get done, what we want to achieve. There's a lot of pressure sometimes for us to get going. And sometimes we just don't feel that energy just yet. And in Chinese medicine, winter is a time for self-reflection. Winter is a time for journeying inward and noticing what it is that we need. And spring is the time for action. So spring is still a few months away for us. So if you're not really feeling that vibe of let's get up and get going straight away, please don't feel like there's anything wrong with you. If we follow the Chinese medicine approach to life, we are still in that phase of being aware of what we need. So today's practice is going to be a really simple practice, a number of shapes that we'll hold in stillness, a number of shapes where I'll invite you to talk or think through in your mind a different mindfulness technique within each of the shapes. Now, if that's something that appeals to you, fantastic. Take the opportunity to practice it. If you prefer to just be in the shapes and tune out what I'm saying because you want to have the stillness, the quietness, then just tune out what I'm saying. Let this practice be one that suits you best, okay? So we're going to come into our very first shape, and it is wide knee child's pose, okay? Now, a couple of ways we can do this. We can bring the knees as wide as feels comfortable for us. Big toes come towards each other. And we can simply walk the fingers forwards and rest on the side of the head or the forehead here. Okay, if you feel more comfortable with the arms behind you, you can. And then some of us will enjoy having a bolster in front of us, in between the legs perhaps, maybe even elevated a little with a block underneath it, and just lying yourself down over your bolster. Okay, so this is our first shape of the practice, wide knee child's pose. So go ahead and find your shape, find your position. And those of you who are just joining us, we're coming into our first shape, wide knee child's pose. And either resting on the forehead or the side of the head as feels comfortable for you. And take as long as you need to adjust. If this is a shape that doesn't feel comfortable for you, then keep the props as they are, but you'll lie yourself down on your back instead, creating a similar position with the legs, feet together, knees out wide. And you'll lie yourself down over the cushion with your arms out wide here. So two different options there. And then whichever of those shapes you choose today, just closing your eyes. And as you settle into this position, making any little adjustments that you need to so that you can find that place of stillness eventually. And see if you can soften the space in between the eyebrows. If you can soften around the corners of the eyes, the corners of the mouth. And take a moment to notice where the tongue is. And if it's resting in the roof of the mouth, can you just gently let it relax away? And notice how that gives you this feeling of ease around the jaw, around the neck, maybe even around the shoulders. And when we find this feeling of ease around the jaw, know that the fascia in our body connecting from the jaw travels all the way down to the pelvic floor area. So by relaxing the jaw, we're quite literally relaxing all the way through the center of our hips and our groin. And let these first moments of the shape just be one of noticing where you're feeling sensation and how that sensation feels today. And some of you might be noticing sensation through the inner thigh. Some of you might be noticing sensation in the lower back. And for some of you, it might even be around the outside edges of the hips. So allow yourself to feel whatever there is for you to feel. And as the minutes pass by, just noticing if these sensations shift, if they get more intense, or if they start to become a little more easy or filled with ease, let's say. And as you find your shape now, I want to introduce the first mindfulness practice. And the first one is just saying to yourself, as you breathe in, I'm aware that I'm breathing in. And then saying to yourself as you breathe out, as you exhale, I'm aware that I'm breathing out. You might shorten it to breathing in and breathing out. Just using this mantra, this focus, this awareness to really keep you in the pose, to keep you in this present moment. And as the minutes pass by, just notice how your mind is feeling. This is a process of coming to stillness and the mind is relaxed and calm. Whether this feels as though the moment you're asked to be still, the mind starts to get busy. This is why we have these tools available to us today to just find ways to give the mind a focus so we can stay with each moment that we're in, both on the yoga mat and in our life away from it. You might start to naturally notice now how the breath has deepened as you have a little more focus. Let's take 3 more breaths. So 3 more rounds of breathing with this mantra. I'm aware that I'm breathing in. I'm aware that I'm breathing out. 3 more rounds from here. When you finish your 3rd round of breathing, in whichever of the shapes you are, just slowly start to use your hands to push the ground away and just lift yourself up to this upright position. Sitting on your bottom or your shins as you feel comfortable. Rest the hands onto the legs and just close your eyes in this upright position. And just pause here, noticing anything that there is to notice. And we take these moments in between the shapes to recognize the benefit of the shape we were in just before. So some of you might notice a sensation of tingling or warmth, maybe even a coolness in the lower back or through the inner thigh. Some of you might simply just recognize that feeling of calmness that begins to arrive with the practice. Let's take another breath just here. And when that breath is complete, just slowly, slowly begin to open your eyes. And as you open your eyes, let's just gently move our props to the side of the mat here, but still within reach. And then go ahead and join me on your stomachs. I'm going to come down into Sphinx pose here. So I have got my elbows roughly underneath my shoulders. Fingers are pointing towards the top of the mat. And you're going to reach the heart forward and then slowly relax either the chin towards the chest. So there's this feeling of looking down, or just looking forward but closing your eyes. Now there's an opportunity to support yourself here. So sometimes it can feel good to stack the blocks one on top of the other, and you'll rest your forehead onto the blocks. Sometimes it can feel quite nice to take your bolster and place it underneath the ribs. And it really depends on the thickness of the bolster that you have as to whether that feels comfortable or not. Okay, so you might even combine the two aspects here. And if some of you feel like you want to be a little higher than that, you can rest the blocks underneath your arms here. Position of the legs is whatever feels most comfortable for you in the lower back. And legs can be wide or close together. Fingers are relaxed. And we close our eyes, we settle into the shape, using the first moments of each shape to make those little micro adjustments that allow us to settle with ease. And then we come to stillness. We come to this place of simply being with ourselves, with our minds, with our bodies, in our shapes. And we notice where we're feeling sensation. And we notice how we're experiencing that sensation. And some of you might stay with this awareness of sensation as your focus for the practice. And some of you might join me now to add another mantra into the practice. So I like to practice as I inhale, saying to myself, I am calm. And as I breathe out, saying to myself, I am grounded. And you might shorten it to calm as you inhale, and grounded as you exhale. Taking your time to slow down the breath as you focus the mind. I am calm. I am grounded. And some of you might start to feel as though you can add a little extra to the shape. And if that feels right for you, then you have the option to come onto your hands as you straighten the arms. Coming up into seal pose here. And the closer the hands are into the body, the deeper the back bend. The further the hands are away, the lighter that intensity may be for you. So know that you can come to the hands or you can stay on your forearms as you prefer. And some of you might experience sensation in the lower back. Some of you may experience sensation through the front of the belly, the front of the chest, the heart space. As you feel space arriving into these areas, notice how it feels to deepen the breath, drawing energy in from the outside world and noticing that expansion around the lungs, around the heart, around the chest. We're going to take 3 more breaths here. When the third breath finishes for you, just slowly start to lower yourself down to your forearms, those of you on your hands. And then slowly start to make a pillow with your arms for your head to rest onto. You can rock the hips gently from side to side here to release into the lower back, or some of you might want to come into a simple child's pose, knees together, forehead to the ground, fingers behind you. Knowing that if you need movement, cat and cow would be a nice way to release into that area here as well. And just notice how the body feels in the moments in between the shapes. And taking 3 more breaths wherever you may be. When the third breath is complete for you, just slowly start to use your hands to push the ground away as you lift yourself up to a comfortable seat. Bringing the bottom to the ground. Having your props within reach once again. The next shape that we'll come to is dragonfly pose. So we're going to take the legs out nice and wide. And you can face the long end on your mat if you feel like you want to keep the feet onto something warm. Spine is long. If you feel like you're rolling backwards before you go forwards, then swap the shape around and choose to practice butterfly pose instead. So you have the feet together and the knees wide. Just helps to tilt the pelvic bowl forwards a little. So a couple of options there for you. Legs are relaxed. So wherever you take the legs to, legs are relaxed. Sitting tall to breathe in. And then on the exhale, just permission to lazily slouch your way forward. And then you're noticing the gap between the head and the ground. So for some of us today, that's going to be just a case of stacking our blocks one on top of the other. For many of us, we'll be a little higher than that, so we can take our blocks to the second or the third height here, reaching around for our bolsters, placing those on top, and then resting our heads onto the bolsters. If you need a little more support still, then take your cushion to the long thin end, the short thin end, and rest your head onto that edge there. Your blocks can then become a resting point for your arms. So take your time, play around with the different levels of support that your body needs in this shape. And taking as much time as you need to find the version that works best for you, whether that be dragonfly or butterfly pose. Both of which access the same areas of the inside line of the leg here, so same meridian lines regardless of our shape. Once you find your shape, just slowly closing the eyes, taking some time to soften that space in between the eyebrows, the center of the forehead. Softening around the edges of the eyes, the corners of the mouth. Just letting the shoulders relax away from the ears, this feeling of ease around the jaw, around the neck. letting the breath slow down just a little from here. The mindfulness technique that we can choose to add into this shape is one that I refer to as labeling. So, as you're sitting here, anytime a thought arises in your mind, whatever that thought may be, allow it to be there rather than trying to push it away or be upset about it being there. Allow it to be there, notice it, and then add a label as to what the thought is about. So, for example, if the thought is about work, you'll label it work. If the thought is about a body part, you'll label it body. And you'll continue to do that with each thought that comes through, acknowledging it, noticing and labeling it, and then choosing to let it go as you come back to the breath as an anchor for your mind. As the minutes pass by, some of you might start to notice that there's a little more space arriving into your body. Please know that it's okay to make adjustments to your shape anytime that you need to. So it might be that you're moving your cushions or your blocks a little further away from your body, or you might be adjusting your blocks to a lower height, maybe even a higher height. You might be playing around between the two shapes. So adjust as you need to, as you feel like space arrives into the body. Make those adjustments in a slow, mindful way. Notice how we're at that point in the practice where we become a little more attuned to this idea of stillness. It starts to become a little easier, perhaps, to keep the mind with us. We start to have that feeling of really indulging ourselves with this opportunity to pause at whatever point in the day we might be in right now. And the shapes that we've practiced together today are really helpful shapes for this cooler time of year, this period of self-reflection, when life is a little busy or we feel under pressure. Each of these shapes that we've practiced today, each of these mindfulness techniques that we've introduced, can be practiced just one at a time. The mindfulness techniques can be taken away from the shapes and practiced in your day-to-day life any time that you need them. Notice how the physical body feels here. That slowing down of the breath, that space that arrives as we come into that place of calmness. As soon as we let the nervous system know that we're in this safe space, we can move ourselves away from sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system. Moving away from fight or flight, the busyness of living, to this place of rest and digest, restoring and recharging. Let's take 3 more breaths here. And when the third breath is complete, just slowly rolling yourself up vertebrae by vertebrae. Gently moving your props to the side. And then just bringing your hands under each of your knees, bringing the bend back into the legs, feet come to the ground. And we'll slowly windshield wipe the legs from side to side here, just getting a little circulation back in. And then when you feel ready, we're going to set ourselves up for Shavasana. So I like to add my bolster for my legs, so feel free to join me if that suits your body. And I like to place it just behind my knees here. And then take up as much space as you need to, lying yourself down onto your back. The hands can rest on the belly, the arms can be alongside the body, wherever it is that feels comfortable for you. Slowly closing your eyes once you get there and adding any extra layers or eye pillows that you might have to hand. Softening the space in between the eyebrows, relaxing around the jaw, the neck, allowing the weight of your head and your shoulders, your spine, your hips, your arms and your legs just gently melt down towards the ground as you take this opportunity to simply just be. And starting to bring the smallest movements back into your body as you wiggle the fingers and the toes. And reaching the arms all the way up overhead, inviting a full body stretch. And drawing your knees in towards your chest, giving them a hug as you roll a little from side to side, back and forth. Eventually coming to roll over and rest for a moment on the left side of your body. And keeping your eyes closed, using your hands to slowly push the ground away as you lift yourself up to a comfortable seat. And just taking a moment to pause in that comfortable seat as you notice how you're feeling, physically and mentally. Notice that feeling of ease, that feeling of calmness that we've created with the practice. Seeing if we can carry that with us into the rest of this new day ahead, this new week, this new year. Coming back to it at any time that we might need it, knowing that it's always there inside of us. Bring the hands together at the heart. We bow the head towards the hands in gratitude for the practice, in gratitude for our health. Namaste.